Exes come back when you ignore them. This is something that I see every single day amongst my clients. And in this video, I will explain the psychological drivers. Why someone, after they decided to end the relationship, how their decision process can be changed, can be shifted, and how that person, your ex, will finally realize that they should give the relationship another chance. Jingle.
igetmyexback.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
So I will talk about the psychological principles behind that change of decision, behind explaining how people, after they decided to end the relationship, can change their mind and start reconnecting with the ex. So there's a lot of tips on no contact. This video is not necessarily about no contact. Whether you should stay in no contact forever, whether it should be 30, 60 days. People tend to feel that there's a formula. By experience, I know that love is very complex. People are very complex. So it's very hard to quantify how long. And the purpose of this video, again, is not to explain whether you should reach out right now, in a few weeks, whether you should not reach out. It's to really explain the psychology of your ex at this point in time if you're going through no contact. And sometimes I'm wrong when I say people, you should not reach out, and then they reach out, or you should. You need to be really humble. I'm really humble every single day that I work with people, because every situation is different. Every situation brings its sort of complexity and sort of difficulty in how you assess things. And by the way, if you have a question, let me know. There's a link in the description where you can book a discovery call with me. And there's also a link to figure out if you have any chance of getting back with your ex, because this applies only in a minority of relationship. I forgot to mention that, but that's very important. Exes come back when the relationship that you had matter to them. If your ex never really cared about you, if the relationship was not strong enough, no contact will only reinforce this idea, and you will never get back together. So it's very important to assess your chances. So have a look. There's a quiz in the description. It's totally free, and the reason I put this quiz together is to really help you gain a bit of clarity on your chances, and not waste your time consuming my content or reading about how to get back with an ex if in the first place there's no way for you to get back together. Let's start with what we call the social exchange theory. It's basically a theory explaining that human relationships can be simplified to economic transaction. I'm winning, you're losing. I'm gaining something from this relationship. It's really like seeing things this way when it comes to a relationship. And after a breakup, your ex might be looking at the relationship as cost-benefit analysis. And if we go back to the idea of this quiz, if your ex is not convinced that there's any cost, any reward from the past relationship, it's going to be very hard for you to get back together. There's going to be an element of comparison level. So the same way as you would do in the businesses or in the economic world, where you have to compare and benchmark things. So it's about how they will compare your relationship, your past relationship, with a future relationship, with other of their relationships. And very often what I assess with my clients is to make sure that the relationship that you had was unique, was what I call life defining, where you had something special. The relationship was special in your ex's life. And an element also of resource investment is about we've been together for this amount of time. It's very hard for me to let go of this. So especially, it's not that it's easier, but usually when you've been together for more than 10 years, there's something you can leverage. It's very hard for your ex to let go of those things. So again, as I said, it's what can I gain from this? Should this be how we perceive relationship? I don't know. I'll let you debate and let me know in the comment section. The second driver is what we call the halo effect, which is a cognitive bias. And that explains that sometimes we tend to magnify something. So it could be a brand or a product. And I know in brand marketing and brand strategy, they use the halo effect. And it's basically this idea in the context of a breakup, especially after no contact, that space, that time apart, will force your ex to reflect on the relationship and see things with fondness. The memories, they'll have some sort of distorted memory, only remembering the good sides of the story, only remembering the happy moments, and looking at the relationship with fondness. Now, what you have to also understand is that you might be prone to these biases as well, right? You might be looking at the story from an angle of only looking at the positive side of the relationship, but forgetting that maybe you were frustrated, maybe you were not really happy in this relationship. So sometimes we overestimate our role in the relationship or in the breakup, for instance. Maybe we feel I'm guilty, I'm not good enough. So it's very important for you to understand that we are all prone to those cognitive bias, and halo effect is one of them. When we assess the relationship, and it's something that I do with my clients, is like, okay, let's take a step back and look at the situation from a very rational point of view. It's very hard to do when you're in love, when you have feelings for someone, but that's what you do when you speak with a therapist, with a coach, to help you detach from that situation and look at the situation for what it is. The other very strong driver is the fear of missing out, FOMO. What happens is, with this phase of no contact, they don't know what you're up to. And that will tease their curiosity. You know they were happy with you, right? And so, of course, they lose the control. Maybe they were not entirely satisfied about the relationship, but they knew what you were doing, who you were seeing. This is where you start, being a bit jealous and so on and so forth. So also, that will trigger this idea of like, what are they doing, right? Maybe they are less happy than they thought they would be after this breakup. Maybe they thought they will bounce back very quickly, but after a month, after 2 months, they realize like, I'm wondering how's she doing? How's she coping with the breakup? One piece of advice is to be really mindful of social media, because social media, what we post on social media is what we want people to perceive of us, but that's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily reflect our state of mind. So it could have a very negative impact on your healing process if you want to move forward, if you want to move on, even if you want to get back together. Be aware of social media. I would advise you to unfollow your partner from social media. Don't block them, just unfollow them. Because the thing is, if you see things or pictures of them, you might be prone to this fear of missing out. You would be like, I want to be with him or her at this party doing these things, right? And you sort of project yourself in that situation. But in a way, you're still at home scrolling on Instagram. And that will reinforce this negative outcome or negative emotions around the breakup. The other very important driver is loss aversion. It's something that was developed by Daniel Kahneman, and I would highly recommend you to buy some of his books. They are fascinating. He won a Nobel Prize in business economics around those ideas. And the idea of loss aversion is that we are prone to prefer avoiding loss than gaining the same amount. So we will fight harder to save $10 than gaining $10. And it actually pains you. The emotional response is twice. So the graph is like you're twice as much as impacted by a loss than by a gain. And so when you're in no contact, when you reclaim your freedom, your autonomy, that creates that loss, right? That creates this idea of like, because I don't have this anymore, I feel a loss of control that will trigger this phenomenon. And so the true value of the relationship can be amplified because of that, because of this element of anytime we lose something, we value that thing as twice as much as when we had it. And so the question is also for you, whether you're not also doing the same, looking at the relationship, magnifying the relationship for something that was not really the case. So perhaps ask yourself whether you were really happy in this relationship. Maybe this breakup came as a surprise, maybe that was a shock, but ask yourself, the past 6 months, were you really happy? Was it the right relationship? Were you happy with how you interacted with your partner? It is very important for you to ask yourself those questions, because that will, again, help you look at the dynamic and understand what you need to do to sort of move forward or get back together. Because maybe you don't want to get back together on the same terms. having the same conversation, the same interactions. You don't want to be roommates anymore. You want to be in a relationship. So it's very important. And the thing is, as you'll understand, I'm explaining the drivers on your partner, but the same could apply to you. And it's very important for you to be aware of those drivers. That's why I'm making videos online, is because a lot of the time we're not aware of how we function, of how we, our psychology. It's something that's unconscious, something that we don't necessarily understand. And that's why I want to shed a light on this, to help you figure out the right course of action. Another element is scarcity principle, which is probably aware of it, is the less something is available, the more expensive it is, right? Luxury, that's the only marketing tool they use, is scarcity principle. They release limited editions, right? You have 10 Ferraris of this and they sell it twice the price of the regular one, but it's actually the same one. It's just because it's limited in price. And so again, they're losing a relationship. Now, are they losing the relationship? Is something you'll have to assess. And again, the quiz is a good tool to do that. If they feel that the relationship was unique, it's going to be very hard to replace you. Of course, there will be this scarcity principle. And that will be increased by this silence, by this distance. You are unique, right? It's about whether they figure out through that process that actually, yes, they agree you're unique and it's going to be very hard to replace you. And because nobody can replace you, your value, the value of a relationship will increase dramatically. Nobody can replace you. There's no price tag to this relationship. Another one less known is the Rosy retrospection, is the tendency to remember past events more fondly than they occurred. So this is really true when you have kids and babies. I usually give this example, but it's so true. When you have sleepless nights and they're super annoying and you have to change the nappies 20 times a day, you still look at those times with fondness, forgetting the pain and the, being exhausted. And this is, in a way, exactly the same when it comes to relationship. And so we idealize sometimes our ex. We also, what we do with the Rosy retrospection is we compare the present state. So, for example, when you have kids, like, oh yeah, but now he's talking back to me, right? He's a grown-up. We have to do the homework. And when he was younger, when they were younger, we didn't have to do that. We just could carry them on the pram and go out with them, etc. And so that's also the sort of idea about Rosy retrospection, is remembering the good times. And again, be aware, you can also be prone to this bias, to this idea of looking at things with pink-tainted glasses in your relationship. Now, let's have a proper conversation. Are you playing a game? If you've been following me for a bit, I don't like playing games. I'm a therapist. I'm here to help people to heal, to figure out the right set of actions to build sustainable and healthy relationships. I want you to stop with this mindset of, if I do this, then this will happen. As a CBT practitioner, and now I'm starting to be interested in the Stoicism philosophy, one thing you have to remember from those fields is only focus on what you can control. The thing is, a relationship is dynamic. And your partner, there's a lot of uncertainties, a lot of things you cannot control, you will never control. Even with my help, even with the best coach ever, even with whoever, you will never be able to control that. So of course, after a breakup, I always advise people to go through a phase of no contact. Not necessarily to activate those biases, but because it will help you. It will help you detach. It will help you figure out what to do. It will help you to ease the emotional pain that we sometimes feel when we are in touch with our ex, trying to repair things, trying to argue, trying to prove our point at a time where our ex they don't want to listen. So first of all, see it as an introspection tool. Understand what you can learn. Of course, you don't see it this way right now, but this breakup is an amazing opportunity for you to learn more about yourself. And that's why I do this job, because I help people to finally discover things that they've put on hold for ages, right? My drive is not necessarily in helping you getting back with your ex. That's an outcome, but I can't control this outcome. Not always. We do our best, right? And by doing our best, we again reflect and understand what we can learn. It's difficult, it's painful. I'm pretty sure you wish that things would have been different, but we're here, right? And there's no other option than looking forward, being strategic about how we invest our energy, our intentions, our attention, and how we make progress. So your ex will come back if you haven't done too much damage post-breakup. You know your ex loved you. The reason for the breakup is not about their feelings. It's very important, because you can ask whoever, if that person is not in love with you, nobody will, there's no magic spell, right? As far as I know. You both adjust, if you both adjust things, things will work out, okay? Right now it's about what can you adjust. Maybe it's about developing a more secure attachment style, communicate effectively, changing your lifestyle, being a better listener. There's so many things that you could adjust, right? If you're not sure about those things, as I said, take the quiz, and that gives you a score, gaining clarity. If you have a score above 15, then there's a chance of you getting back together. Is it guaranteed that you're going to get back together? No, and be aware of anyone who would guarantee that if you do this and that, your ex will come back. I'm not into the law of attraction manifesting things. It's about what you can control. And of course, positive things will happen in your life, but there's a lot of uncertainty. We have to accept that life brings a certain part of uncertainty. But if you focus on what you can control, you will see the progress. You will feel so much better. Now, let's look again at those biases, but from your point of view. First one is social exchange theory. Right after a breakup, we would blame ourselves. I should have done this. I should have said that. When you do the work, that shift from, okay, it's a balance, right? It's not so much about what you've done and what you haven't done. There's also your exes has a part of responsibility. You will also recognize your own value. It's not about the things that you haven't done, because it's about, you've done your best at this point in time, and they should also recognize this. You'll be more aware that what you want, right? What are the things that I accept? What are the things that I don't accept? With the halo effect, it's the idealization of the ex-partner. He's the one. That's the only person. That's the only person I can find right now. When you do the work, you see things more realistically. You see things the way I see things, because I don't have a history of feelings for that person. But I can assess how he or she treats you, how he or she commits or is accountable in terms of in the context of the relationship. Now, the other one is the fear of missing out. So, of course, especially when you struggle with no contact, we are worrying about what they are doing. Maybe they're dating someone. That's the worst. Maybe they're dating someone. Or we obsess about the loss. We're thinking like, what? I'm so stupid. I'm so bad. Now, when you do the work, you focus on things you can control. Personal growth. This is why you have tips online about find a new activity, learn a new hobby, right? This is why they're telling you to do this. Because otherwise you're in your room, scrolling Instagram, doing nothing. And this is where you sort of trigger this fear of missing out. Because you feel my life is shit, their life should be better, and I want to be part of that. Create the life. That's your responsibility right now. Design a life that you would love. He or she will potentially join, but the only thing you can control is designing a life that, fulfills you. Scarcity principle. Again, it's I never find anyone like this. He's the one, she's the one. When you do the work, you start looking at things differently. That was a love story. He was important in my life. Maybe that chapter is over. And I had partners before. I will have partners after. People meet their plus ones at any stage of their life. I have so many stories of people meeting their new partner, 60, 70 years old. The oldest was, I think she was 72. So there's no rules. The Rosy retrospection is, again, looking only at positive moments, ignoring the conflict. When you do the work, you recall the relationship more accurately. And this is where it's really helpful to have someone to help you to sort of, okay, hold on. Let's look at things from a rational point of view. Let's look at the facts. How many times were you seeing each other? What were, how did you feel they were invested in the relationship? What were the sort of the proof of love? How many times they would initiate, go on a date with you, offer you something, act of service, etc., etc. And the last is the loss of affection, the fears, really focusing on the loss. This is about, the work. When you do the work, is you appreciate what you have, right? Rather than focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you have. It's so easy to be obsessed about what we've lost, but hold on, there's so many things in your life. If you, in life coaching, there's something called the wheel of life, where you have, depending on the wheel, but you have between 10 to 12 items. Loving relationship is one of those items. There's health, money, personal development, family, friends, and other things, right? And relationship is just one item. Of course, it's important to have a healthy, loving relationship, but that's not only thing that matters. Now, a quick reminder for you. Don't leave the video right now. I have to tell you something very important. There's one thing I'm wishing you, is to be successful. And I hope you'll find answers from this breakup. The thing is, whether you get back with your ex or not has no importance. Whether you get back with your ex or not has no importance whatsoever. Remember those words. In a few months, you realize what I mean by that. Because if you do the work, whether you end up together or not, that's not what matters. What matters is the journey. What matters is that through this difficult time, you finally find yourself.